and welcome to another episode of Central Coast Newspapers Video News. I'm Jackie Pearson, and today we're joined by Central Coast Mayor Jane Smith. Mayor Smith, thank you for making time to be with us.
Good morning.
I wanted to start by talking about the issue that wasn't resolved at the last October meeting about frequency of meetings. Do you really think that monthly meetings are going to be enough?
Look, I don't think so, and I think there is a general view amongst the councillors that we'd like more than a monthly meeting. So we're starting to have that conversation, and I would expect at the November meeting, 27th of November, there will be a motion to increase the number of meetings to 2 per month. We are still discussing days of the week, so Mondays is not the preferred option for everybody, so again, we're canvassing some other days of the week. So I'm expecting it will go to 2 per month, and it may be on a different day.
And so will there still be the proposal for directorship-based committees as well, or are you stepping back from that?
No,
at this
we're not
stage?
going that way at this point. So this is the discussion we've had. It still needs to be voted on, of course, but we're not proposing to go that way. That's one model of meeting structure, but we're going to have 2 ordinary meetings per month.
Okay, so from the end of November until basically the end of February, there's not going to be a meeting. Usually there's a delegation of authority during that Christmas period. Have you made any progress with that? How are things going to keep moving?
Not yet. Now, I think there is a meeting scheduled in December.
Oh, okay.
So we will be having a meeting in December. Normally, what happens is that delegated authority is given to the Mayor and the CEO, so I'm expecting that will be the way it happens over that Christmas period. But there's also the opportunity to call an extraordinary meeting if something comes up and we need to call the full council together. Okay.
Apparently, the Central Coast is the only local government area in New South Wales to have a Coordinator General. The Coordinator General, we're told, is in place to ensure implementation of the New South Wales Government's Central Coast Regional Plan 2036. What interface is there between the Coordinator General and the elected council, and where do the two entities fit in determining what happens to this LGA?
Sure. So I've met with the Coordinator General as the Mayor. My understanding is that her role is primarily to implement the priority actions. So there are 9 priority actions in the regional plan, and then there are a couple of other tasks that she has on her list. There is a relationship between the Coordinator General liaising with staff, and there is a committee that has been established that our staff are on. So there is a degree of coordination and cooperation, and I think that's a good thing. I think we do need to have that cooperation, and she will hopefully facilitate some changes to implement those plans that Council is working with her on.
Do you understand her statutory authority? She has stated on the public record that she has statutory power to do things like approve the new consolidated LAP. And that was never part of the original brief that was announced by New South Wales Planning. Do you have any idea what her actual power, where it comes from?
So I have heard the Coordinator General say that, and I am just trying to get that clarified a little bit. I think as a minimum it probably refers to the Department of Planning's power and her role as being appointed by the Minister for Planning.
Okay.
But the detail of that I'm just trying to get a bit clarified, just for information more than anything else, just to find out how those processes are working.
Now, Mangrove Mountain Landfill, you have put a mayoral minute forward to form that committee, and I'm sure that's going through the motions of coming to fruition. The EPA in its last statement said to the newspapers said that it was now the ball was in Council's court in terms of approval, whether it required a new DA or a Section 96 for anything to recommence up there, for any work or any more acceptance of landfill. Where's the council at?
So Council is monitoring the activity around that issue. I'm probably a little bit limited in what I can say. because I understand that there are legal processes around this issue, as you'd be aware of. There's the court outcome as well as other referrals. So I'm probably a little bit limited in how much I can say, but I know council staff are monitoring the issue quite closely.
Okay. And no timeframes, for the new committee?
Look, at this stage, I would expect that there'll be a motion coming to the 27th of November, which will endorse the makeup, the membership of that committee. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to get a meeting before the end of the year, bearing in mind that will be the end of November, and then trying to establish a meeting in December might be a little bit problematic. If it's possible, I'd be happy to do that, but realistically it might be closer to the end of January or early Feb. And look, I'd rather do it well, make sure that we have a good meeting where we can sort of canvass all of the issues rather than have a rushed meeting where people are thrown into it without sort of being prepared for those discussions.
Have you had expressions of interest from community members about joining that committee?
My understanding is that they are coming in.
Okay.
I don't know the numbers, but certainly in speaking to residents, I know that they are keen to submit expressions of interest, so I'm sure there are a number.
Now, just back to Gosford for a moment. The Coordinator General has said that she's working with the State Government architect to come up with basically a blueprint for the future of the CBD from the Etna Street Bridge to the waterfront. Again, what role and what authority, how is that project being divvied up between Coordinator General and Council?
So I think there is a need to clarify some of that, and that's one of the questions that I am asking. The role of the government architect is not, in my understanding, it's not about built form. It's more about activating the CBD and linkages across the CBD, also the public spaces. So that's my understanding of the role. I do want a bit more clarification around it, but as far as I'm aware, the Coordinator General and the Government Architect will be working within the framework of Council's planning controls.
Okay. There's been gateway approval given to the consolidated LEP, the Local Environmental Plan, and that is basically an amalgam of the former Weil and the former Gosford plans, taking the most generous or flexible where there were differences between the two. There's a couple of things that appear to be a bit out of kilter with what I would expect this elected council to agree to. Smaller minimum lot sizes within residential zones in Gosford, which is going to cause a lot of, I think, something like 2,900 subdivision possibilities. That's much higher density than has ever been seen in the old Gosford LGA before. How do you feel about that?
So the councillors still need to get a briefing on the consolidated LEP.
Yeah.
I've had a quick look at the gateway document. I think it will go out on expedition, and I think it's really important that residents have a look at it and make submissions if they're not happy with what's being proposed. I do think there may be some concerns about those smaller lot sizes, and I think it's important that people have a look at that and see if it's suitable for their area. I think the residents need to have a strong voice in what they want the character and their neighbourhoods to look like in the future. And so the consolidated LEP is one opportunity to do that, and it's an important opportunity because it's the merging of the two former LEPs. So it is an important process for people to get engaged with, and I'll be sort of spruiking that as much as I can.
And how did you feel personally about seeing in that report that coastal open spaces system land was going to be E2?
So again, I need a bit of clarification around it. The former Wyong Council E2 zone doesn't allow a dwelling. So that's an interesting kind of anomaly between the two former council LEPs. Now, knowing that, it's an interesting question to see how that plays out in the consolidated LEP, because obviously there are a whole lot of land in Gosford, the former Gosford, that are E2 with a dwelling. And so obviously there needs to be a provision for that, because you can't take that away from people. So I am interested just to see what all of that means and how it is being blended together. Having said that, in terms of COS land, you know, I have a history and a deep commitment to COS. You know, I want to make sure that it goes forward into the future. The former Gosford lobbied hard for an E5 zone, a new zone, and I'm probably not ready to give that up, even if the E2 zone doesn't allow a dwelling. I still think that COS and urban bushland is still a significant asset to protect and ensure there is strong protection.
Well, in fact, within the assessment report, there's a nod to the importance of urban bushland, which seems to contradict their position on making COS E2, but take that as a comment.
Yes.
But they also excised from existence the bonus lot provisions and said go find another way to fund buying the outstanding third of the COS land that you want.
Yes, and I think that's still a conversation that needs to be had. It was always going to be problematic, so even when Gosford created their LEP with the new template, and this might be getting a bit too technical, but it was always a problem trying to carry over that bonus lot provision. However, there did seem to be ways of doing that. So I think I'm keen to talk to staff about whether we can incorporate those provisions, and if not, then we need a strong mechanism that does support COS going forward into the future.
Anything else you're working on at the moment, Mayor Smith, that you wanted to talk about?
Well, again, the Community Strategic Plan. I want to keep plugging
Yes.
that because it's such an important process for people to get engaged in. It's where our community and our residents and all our stakeholders have an opportunity to set a vision for the next 10 years. Once that Community Strategic Plan is developed, then Council's policies and procedures need to be consistent with it. So I think if we're looking forward to the future of the Central Coast and we all have our own ideas about what we want it to look like, then now is the time to get engaged and to make sure that the Community Strategic Plan will reflect that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.